The note was already under the wiper when he got back, and the handwriting looked like it had been practiced on purpose. It was 2002 at Baxter State Park in Maine, late afternoon, and the man who'd followed the hikers all day stood by the trail register like he owned the place. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't hurry. He just watched the only working car in the lot, then glanced at the chained park gate as if he'd checked it twice. The hikers had come out for a short pond trail and an easy drive home. They found a cooler by the water that didn't belong to anyone they knew, a phone face down in mud, and a shoe sitting by itself like someone had stepped out of it and never came back. Then one of the hikers walked 10 feet off trail to use the bathroom and never returned. No shout, no crash, just empty woods and a crushed cap in wet leaves. Back at the cars, the stalker asked if they wanted help. When they refused, the engine started and died. The gate stayed locked, and a knife appeared in his hand like a final decision. He kept talking like it was normal, like he was offering directions. The hikers had 1 can of pepper spray, 1 broken trekking pole, and a choice that felt smaller every second. This is when everything changed for me. At the time, I was 29. I was experienced. 8 years of backpacking trails most people never heard of, plus enough dumb mistakes early on to make me careful later. My name's Aaron, and that morning I left Millinocket while it was still dark enough that the road lines looked gray. I worked seasonal construction back then and picked up whatever I could when the weather turned. I wasn't broke in the dramatic sense, but I measured everything, and I didn't waste fuel on trips that didn't matter. Baxter mattered because it felt like the kind of place you could still hear your own thoughts. I reached the gatehouse just after it opened. A woman in a park shirt took my cash and asked where I planned to hike. I told her the pond trail near the smaller lot, nothing ambitious, just a day on my feet. She slid a pass across the counter, then tapped a corkboard behind her with 2 fingers and said, "If you see anything left behind, tell a ranger." The board held a couple of notices and 2 fresh missing person flyers. A couple in their late 30s, last seen 3 days earlier, smiling in the kind of picture people take when they think they're safe. Under the photo, the details listed the trails they'd planned to walk, the make of their car, and a note about a phone that had gone straight to voicemail since the day they disappeared. I stood there longer than I meant to, reading it twice. The woman watched me and said, "Most days folks just get turned around, but we want eyes open." I nodded like I understood. I signed the day log with the pen on a string, wrote Aaron H. out of habit, and shoved the pass into the corner of my windshield. I didn't say much else. I didn't want to carry other people's fear into my own day. The lot I chose sat away from the main flow. It held maybe a dozen spots, a wooden trail register, and a small information board with a park map under cloudy plastic. My car was the third one there. The air felt cold and wet, the kind that sticks to the cuffs of your sleeves. A newer sport utility vehicle rolled in and parked 2 spaces down. A young guy got out first, stretching like he'd been sitting too long. A young woman followed, adjusting a bright day pack with straps that still looked factory stiff. They seemed excited in a clean, uncomplicated way. The woman smiled at me. "Is this the trail to the pond?" "It is," I said. "Easy grade, just watch the wet spots." The guy stepped up to the register and said, "I'm Dylan, this is my sister Marissa." He said it like he introduced them everywhere. "Aaron," I said, and I left it there. Marissa signed the register carefully, pressing hard enough that the pen left faint grooves. Dylan scribbled fast and capped the pen like he couldn't wait to get moving. While they did that, a man walked into the lot from the direction of the information board. I didn't hear a car door. I didn't hear gravel crunch like someone had just parked. He came in like he'd been standing in the trees and decided it was time to step out. He carried a pack, but it sat wrong. It didn't pull at his shoulders. It didn't look like it held water or food. It looked like something he wore because hikers wore them. His clothes were plain, earth colors, nothing that stood out, and he didn't greet anyone. He stopped at the trail register and leaned in close to the page. He didn't pick up the pen. He just looked at what we'd written. Dylan said, polite, "Morning." The man glanced up. "You two heading to the water?" Marissa answered, "Yeah, just there and back." The man looked at me next. "You see a silver sedan come in earlier?" "No," I said. He nodded like he'd asked for a reason, then went back to the register without signing. Dylan and Marissa walked toward the trailhead, and I followed a few seconds later because I didn't like being the last person in a lot with a stranger. The trail started as packed dirt and turned into a mix of roots and boards laid over mud. The woods were tight, the light dull under the canopy, and the air smelled like wet leaves and cold water. I kept a steady pace and let Dylan and Marissa pull ahead by a small distance, close enough that I could still see their bright pack through the trees. About 10 minutes in, I heard footsteps behind me, not far, not right on top of me either. The spacing kept changing, like whoever it was knew how close was too close. I stepped off the trail at a wider spot and pretended to adjust a strap. Dylan and Marissa passed, nodding. A few seconds later, the man came into view and walked right past me without looking over. His pace was smooth, and he didn't breathe hard. He said, "You guys out for the day?" Like he had a script. "Yeah," I said. "Good day for it," he replied, and kept moving. I watched him a moment. He didn't turn his head. He didn't check the ground for footing the way most hikers did. He moved like someone walking a hallway, not a trail, and that made my stomach tighten in a quiet, practical way. At the pond, the trees opened into a low shoreline with a few flat rocks and a narrow strip of mud. The water looked dark and still. I set my pack down, drank, and let my eyes move across the far side out of habit. A blue jacket lay over a rock on the opposite bank. A small cooler sat nearby with the lid cracked open. No one sat with it. No one stood in the open. If someone was there, they were hidden well enough that I couldn't see them. Marissa and Dylan came down to the edge and started talking about taking pictures. Then Marissa noticed me staring and asked, "What is it?" "Just looking," I said, because I didn't want to put fear into her voice if I didn't have to. I walked closer to the abandoned cooler, careful not to step on anything that looked deliberate. The lid creaked when I pushed it open. Inside, soda cans rolled in warm water and melted ice. A folded paper map sat on top with a set of car keys laid across it, like someone had dropped them in a hurry and never bothered to pick them back up. A phone lay face down in the mud beside the cooler, the case scratched and dirty. Next to it sat a single running shoe, tipped on its side. The shoe was too clean for the mud around it, like it had come off before it hit the ground. Dylan stepped beside me. "That's not ours." "No," I said, "and it shouldn't be here like this." Marissa moved in and stopped short when she saw the keys. Her expression changed fast, from curiosity to something tight and pale. "Should we pick it up?" "Don't touch anything," I said. "If this belongs to the missing couple, we don't want to smear what's here." Dylan frowned. "How do we even tell anyone? There's no service." I tried my phone. Nothing. Marissa tried hers. Same. The pond sat in a shallow pocket of woods, and it felt like the air itself pressed down. I looked around again, slower. That's when I saw the other detail. On a low branch near the water, someone had tied a strip of pale tape, not flagging tape, not bright, just a dull piece that blended in. It pointed away from the pond, toward thicker brush. It looked like the kind of thing you'd tie if you wanted someone to follow, but you didn't want it obvious to everyone. I pointed at it without stepping closer. "See that?" Marissa swallowed. "Why would someone do that?" "I don't know," I said, "but we're not following it." Dylan's voice dropped. "That guy on the trail, the one who asked about the car." "Yeah," I said. "That's why we go back now, together, and we tell a ranger what we found." We started back up the trail at a fast walk. I stayed behind them so I could watch both the path ahead and the woods behind. I didn't tell them what I was thinking, but it kept circling in my head anyway. People don't leave keys and phones by a pond unless something took priority over them. People don't leave shoes behind unless they leave in a way they didn't plan. About halfway back, Dylan slowed and said, "I need a second." Marissa groaned like it was a normal annoyance. "Just hurry." Dylan stepped 10 feet off the trail into a screen of branches and said, 2 minutes. He sounded casual, but he didn't look at me when he said it. Marissa and I waited on the trail. I kept my eyes on the spot where Dylan disappeared, and I kept my head angled so I could hear both directions. A minute passed, then another. Marissa called, "Dylan?" No answer. She called again, louder. Dylan, stop messing around. Nothing. I stepped off trail a pace, not committing, just checking. The ground was wet, and Dylan's tracks should have been obvious. I saw prints, but not the pattern I expected. I saw a heel drag, a line through wet leaves, and a scuff mark where something had been pulled, not walked. Marissa pushed past me, panic rising. Dylan! I caught her sleeve. Stay with me. Don't run in blind. Her eyes were wide and wet. He wouldn't just leave. I know, I said, keeping my voice steady. That's why we go back for help. We searched the immediate area without losing sight of the trail. I found Dylan's cap on the ground, crushed like someone had stepped on it. I found one trekking pole snapped near the grip, the carbon splintered at an angle that didn't match a simple fall. Marissa covered her mouth with both hands. She made a sound that was half breath and half disbelief. Oh my God! I leaned close so she could hear me. We go back now. We get a ranger. We come back with people and radios. She shook her head hard. We can't leave him. If we get pulled off trail 2, nobody comes back for anyone, I said. You want to help him. You do it the way that keeps you alive. She stared at me like she wanted to argue, but she couldn't find words. Then she nodded once, sharp and desperate. We moved fast and I kept her close. I didn't run. Running makes you miss details, and details were the only advantage we had. When the man appeared on the trail ahead, it felt less like a surprise and more like the next step in something he'd already planned. He stood where the path narrowed, hands relaxed at his sides, his pack sitting light on his back. He didn't act out of breath. He didn't look around like someone searching. He looked straight at Marissa. She blurted, "Have you seen my brother?" The man lifted his hands, palms out, like he was calming an animal. Easy. I saw him. He slipped near the water and hit his head. He's confused. He tried to stand. My stomach tightened. Where is he? Down off the pond trail, the man said. I was going to get help, but I ran into you. Come on. What's your name? I asked. He hesitated just long enough to matter. Cal. Cal what? I pressed. His eyes flicked to my face, then away. We need to move. He's not thinking straight. Marissa took a step toward him, and I stepped into her path. No. Cal's tone stayed even. I'm trying to help you. Then walk with us to the lot, I said. We'll get a ranger. We'll come back with someone official. Cal's jaw tightened in a way that didn't match concern. Gatehouse won't have anyone right now. They rotate. I know how it works. That line chilled me because it sounded rehearsed. It sounded like someone who'd watched the place enough times to learn its gaps. I said, We're going to the lot. Cal stared at Marissa. You want your brother alive, you follow me. Marissa whispered, Aaron, please. I kept my eyes on Cal. We're going to the lot. Cal didn't block us. He just stepped aside like he was allowing it. Then, after we passed, I heard his footsteps behind us again, measured and patient. When the parking lot finally came into view, my first reaction was relief. My second reaction was wrong. My driver door sat cracked open. I hadn't left it like that. I never left it like that. I walked straight to my car and looked at the ground. No broken glass, no scattered plastic, just a clean, quiet violation that told me someone had taken their time. Inside, my paper map sat refolded into a different shape. A pencil lay across it, placed like a marker. The glove compartment was closed, but not latched. The small things were off, like someone wanted me to notice without making a mess. Marissa saw my face and said, What happened? Get in, I told her. Passenger side, now. She obeyed, eyes locked on the tree line. I slid into the driver's seat and looked through the windshield. A note was tucked under the driver's side wiper, folded once. I didn't touch it right away. I read what I could through the glass. It used my full name and the exact phrase I'd said at the gatehouse that morning, the one about being back before dark. That wasn't guesswork. That was overheard. I pulled the note out carefully, holding it by the edge. It said, simple and neat. Back before dark, Aaron. Help isn't close. Marissa's voice broke. He knows you. He heard me, I said, keeping my voice flat so she wouldn't spiral. Get low in the seat. I turned the key. The engine started, caught, then died as if someone pinched off its breath. I tried again. Same. The starter worked fine. The engine didn't stay alive. Cal stood near the trail register now, like he had returned to his station. He called out, "Car trouble?" I didn't answer him. I popped the hood and stepped out, trying to keep my body between Marissa and the open lot. Under the hood, nothing looked wrong in the obvious way. No smoke, no loose cables, no empty reservoir, just a clean engine that refused to run. Cal walked closer, slow, careful. "Want help?" I said. "Where's Dylan?" Cal's gaze moved past me toward Marissa in the car. "He needs help. You two made that clear." "Open the gate," I said. Cal smiled once, small. "You can't drive out anyway." That's when I noticed the entrance gate in the distance. A chain stretched across it, and a padlock hung in the middle like a final answer. The chain was too clean to be old park hardware. Marissa climbed out, shaking. "You chained the gate?" Cal shrugged. "So nobody leaves while we're still looking." I raised my pepper spray so he could see it. I didn't wave it. I didn't threaten. I just held it at chest level, steady. Cal stopped, but he didn't step back. "You spray me and then what? You'll still be stuck in here. You'll still be alone." My mind moved through options fast. Walk to the road, climb the gate, try the gatehouse phone, wait for another car and hope it came before he decided to finish this. Marissa whispered, "Aaron, what do we do?" "We move," I said. "We don't stand still. We don't let him get close." Cal tilted his head. "You're making it hard." His hand drifted low toward his waistband, and I saw the angle of something tucked there. He brought it up, and a knife appeared in his grip, plain and practical, the kind you could buy anywhere. He held it the way a man holds a tool he's used. I didn't wait for him to close the distance. I sprayed. The stream hit his face. He jerked back and coughed, wiping hard at his eyes with one hand while the other kept the knife. He blinked fast, angry now, and that anger was clearer than any threat. I grabbed Marissa's wrist and pulled her toward the gatehouse building near the entrance. I'd noticed a wall-mounted phone box earlier when I drove in. If it had a line, it was our way out. We reached it. I flipped the cover and put the receiver to my ear. Dead. No tone. Cal's steps came behind us, heavier now, boots grinding grit. He recovered faster than I expected, blinking red-eyed, jaw tight, knife up. Marissa cried, "Please, stop!" Cal ignored her and kept his attention on me. "You think you're the first guy who thinks he's prepared?" I didn't answer. I looked at the gatehouse door. It was locked, the windows dark. No ranger inside, no movement, no noise. Cal closed the distance another step, and I raised my trekking pole like a staff. I wasn't trying to win a fight. I was trying to make space. He slashed low at my leg fast. The blade caught fabric and opened my pant leg. It didn't bite deep, but it told me what he meant to do next. I stepped back and drove the pole forward into his chest, not a strike to injure, a shove to keep him away. He stumbled, caught himself, and came again. I swung at his wrist, aiming to knock the knife loose, and he yanked back just in time. Marissa screamed, and Cal's eyes flicked toward her for half a second. That half second was enough. I shoved hard with the trekking pole again, straight through his center. His feet slid on grit and wet leaves. He fell backward onto the concrete step at the base of the gatehouse, and his head struck the edge with a sound I felt more than heard. His arms jerked once, then went slack. The knife clattered out of his hand and lay in the dirt. I stood over him, pole raised, waiting for him to get up. He didn't. Marissa's voice shook. "Is he dead?" I didn't touch her. I didn't take my eyes off him. I knelt just far enough to see his chest. No rise. I held my hand near his neck the way I'd seen medics do in training videos. I didn't feel anything that reassured me. I said, "Don't go near him." Marissa backed away, both hands on her head, breathing fast like she might pass out. "Oh my God, Dylan." "I know," I said. "Stay with me." Cal's keyring sat near his hand. I used my trekking pole to drag it closer, keeping distance in case he was playing dead. The keys looked normal at first, but then I saw the small brass tag wired to one. It wasn't labeled with words. It had a scratched mark that matched the shape of the padlock on the gate chain. I said, "We're opening the gate." Marissa nodded, eyes wide, not trusting her own legs. We moved together to the entrance gate, and I kept the pepper spray up, scanning the tree line while my other hand worked the lock. The key turned on the first try. The chain dropped, heavy, and the gate swung just enough to matter. We stepped through to the roadside and waved our arms at the first car that appeared, an older sedan moving slow. The driver saw the chain on the ground and the two of us in the open and stopped without needing more explanation. I leaned toward his window and said, "Call 911, now. There's a man down, and there's someone missing in the woods." The driver's face tightened. He nodded, grabbed his phone, and started talking fast. The response came quicker than I expected. Rangers arrived first, then state police. They approached the gatehouse step with caution, weapons drawn, and they didn't relax when they saw Cal on the ground. One ranger checked him and looked up at the others with a grim shake of his head. They separated Marissa and me right away, asked questions in short bursts, and walked the pond trail with a search team before dark fully settled. I sat on the bumper of a ranger truck with a blanket over my shoulders and watched flashlights slice through the trees. Marissa sat a few yards away, wrapped in her own blanket, staring at the ground like she'd dropped something there and couldn't find it. They found Dylan after midnight. A ranger followed disturbed ground off the pond trail to a service track I never knew existed. They found him hidden behind brush, placed in a way that didn't happen by accident. The ranger who told Marissa didn't give details. He didn't need to. The sound she made told me enough. They found the missing couple the next day, farther out along that same service track, where normal hikers wouldn't go. They treated the area like a crime scene because that's what it was. The investigators moved slow and careful, marking everything, speaking in low tones, keeping distance from the bodies like respect and caution were the same thing. Cal's truck sat in a different lot, parked clean, pass displayed like he belonged. Inside, they found a notebook with names, dates, license plates, and trail notes written like schedules. They found torn pages from trail registers, folded and kept in a plastic bag. They found spare padlocks and a small bolt cutter. They found a cheap phone with no contacts, just a list of numbers written on paper beside it. When an investigator came to talk to me near dawn, he kept it simple. He wasn't a ranger, he wasn't staff, but he knew this place. "How?" I asked. The investigator looked at the gatehouse, then back at me. "He applied for seasonal work years ago. Didn't get hired. He kept coming. He learned when the gaps were. He learned where people walk when they think no one's watching." I thought about the note under my wiper and the way it used the exact words I'd said at the gatehouse that morning. "He was there early," I said, "before I even drove in." The investigator didn't disagree. He just wrote it down. They towed my car out later that day. A mechanic in town found the problem in under 10 minutes. The fuel pump relay was missing. Someone had pulled it clean and left everything else intact. A small, quiet sabotage that only mattered when you needed to leave fast. Marissa's parents arrived by afternoon, faces stunned and blank. I watched them hold her like they could keep her from falling apart by sheer force. I gave a statement again, slower this time, and answered the same questions until the officer stopped asking. Before I left, a ranger supervisor handed me the note from my windshield in a clear evidence sleeve. "He got your name from the register," she said, "but the words on this note came from somewhere else." I stared at my own name in someone else's careful handwriting and felt my stomach drop all over again, because she was right. He didn't just read me. He listened. I drove home in a borrowed vehicle with the evidence sleeve on the passenger seat, and I kept my eyes on every turnout and every mirror, because the worst part wasn't the violence. The worst part was how long he'd been close enough to study people without being noticed.